This is Bo back in the lounge. Want to do a shout out to the 1.5 million listeners we have and to the zsportslounge.com and the affiliates who support that. We have a chance to talk wrestling right now with University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. None other than Heath Eslinger. Sir, thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. We were talking off air, and I think I'm going to roll with this as well. You're almost in the same position as Rich Rodriguez and Charlie Weiss. You've got a program that had Olympians, MMA stars, All-American, national champs. The list can go on for hours. It's a good day to be at Tennessee, but man, oh man.
I just wish they'd write me the same checks that they're writing Rich Rodriguez and Charlie Weiss.
I would want the Charlie Weiss if I had to take my pick because he doubled his pay, challenging them on the New Orleans rule,
Yeah, but no, it's a good place to be. There's a lot of tradition here. It's a great city to live in. University supports wrestling very well, and the alumni base is very supportive of wrestling here. So, it's a great place to be. We have some things we can do to get better, and those are the things we're working on day in and day out. So we're ready to roll.
I think Tennessee or Chattanooga is, first off, I'm just going to do a non-sports piece, is a beautiful piece. Every time we get down there, we go through Chattanooga on the way to Florida or North Carolina. You can name it, all the places you go from there. It is by far one of those beautiful places to go, and the people in that community support what you all do. I mean, it's almost like no other place on the planet.
It's unbelievable. We're top 10 in attendance last year, and that's pretty impressive for being one of the few wrestling schools here. We're the only Division I school in the whole Southeast. The support that this place has is unbelievable. And like you said, man, the community is just a great place to live. Not only is the city in and of itself just a great place. I mean, it's super nice. It's very family friendly. A lot of things to do. The scenery is great, but you're in proximity to other things. You're 6 hours from the beach. You're an hour and a half from Atlanta, 2 hours from Nashville, an hour and 15 minutes from Knoxville. So, there's just a lot of things to get to, in a short amount of time from Chattanooga.
Absolutely. Now, Coach, coming into this, there's not really going to be a lot of talk about underclassmen, upperclassmen, because you got what you got. You're looking at it. You've got a team that's maxed out. But who are those studs right now that are showing up in the weight room, on the cardio, on the elliptical? You can name it because wrestling's all about cardio.
We got, there's a good group of kids here. I will give credit where credit's due. And, we got some great kids in the room. If we're very successful this year, it's going to have little to do with me. It's going to be to do with the kids that are just here. We had a great recruiting class. So, Demetrius Johnson at 125 pounds, just doing a great job. He's just a machine. Cody Cleveland, who's a returning All-American for us, has really just climbed the ladder in every aspect, in the sense of just saying, hey, this is my last chance. We really feel like he's a guy who could be our NCAA finalist. He's wrestled right with and beaten almost every kid at that weight. And, there's a lot of factors that go into being an NCAA champ, an NCAA finalist, or even an All-American that are out of your control. But, he's a guy who has the tools and who's been there and has proven that he can do it. So Alex Hudson, who's a freshman for us, is just a freaking animal, too. The guy runs sub 5-minute miles, and he's like a Brand's brother of wrestling, and we are glad he's here. He makes our whole practice room better. So, a lot of good kids. You hate mentioning one or two guys because you got so many kids that are doing the right things. But we feel like the kids have bought into what we're doing here very well. I'm kind of Little House on the Prairie conservative, and having expectations that some people would even consider as unfair, maybe just for their life and their academics and things like that. But I'm not going to waver because I think that's what's going to, when you're at a place like UTC, if you want to compete with the big dogs, you got to do everything right, not some of the things right.
Yeah, and unlike most other sporting programs, in wrestling, you have the opportunity to compete at the highest levels no matter where you're at. Whether you're an NIA wrestler, you're going to wrestle the D1 wrestlers at these big tourneys and these big opens. That's what I'm hoping stays in place. I think if wrestling segmented itself out like it talked about in Fort Lauderdale, it might actually cripple the sport, similar to what happened with the Arena Football League when the NFL decided to buy it and move the date. There's no more arena football, and that's what my biggest fear is.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I spoke at a thing yesterday. They're asking, we just got to do our job as coaches. We got to be doing the right things, and if we're doing the right things, it's not very often that they're going to drop our program. So, and wrestling is unique. If you're an NAIA champ, you have an opportunity to go to open tournaments. You have an opportunity to showcase. What you can do, and I mean, hey, if you line up against a guy, shake his hand, and whip his tail, you whipped his tail. There's not much they can take from you.
Absolutely. And people aren't going to sit there and call it an underdog. We've got, what's great about wrestling, it crosses over to the professional MMA all the time. If you look at the outset of the UFC, you've got Brock Lesnar, of course, NCAA. You've got Shane Carwin, he's going to fight, a D2 NCAA champ. It seems if you're not a wrestler in college, or at least a little college exposure in wrestling, you are not going to make it big. And the best thing about that is that you're not talking about football or basketball where the kid may not be able to spell his name. And I'm going to be honest, there's a lot of programs out there that can have that stereotype that they have those issues. In wrestling, on any program, there is no stereotype. You have the best educated students probably on campus.
Yeah, it is. I mean, because it takes a special person to put yourself through this torture. I mean, it is. It's not easy. So I mean, there are, and looking at MMA and things like that. I tell people all the time. I mean, basketball players you see graduate from college and go be successful immediately in something like that. Not many, because it takes a special breed of person. So, I think it's done some good for the sport, and I think it gives guys an opportunity to actually finally financially make some money. Where in wrestling, that's not the case very often.
Absolutely. Well, you think about the time and effort that you put through. Most wrestling coaches don't have a pooch gut. They're not out of shape. Even if they're in their 60s or 70s, they're probably some of the most in shape individuals because they still run. They still, get on the bike, the elliptical to keep themselves trimmed. Basketball coaches and football coaches perpetually look like they've stopped at the donut shop one too many times.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think we got to drive. I think wrestlers kind of have a drive. I don't know. Maybe it's just our egos are too big and we want to look good. I don't know.
Yeah, you also are the most underdressed individuals on the planet outside of swimmers.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably. When you got to wear a singlet, you better. That's what I tell people. I said, if for no other reason, you need to be in shape, so when you put your singlet on, you're not embarrassing yourself.
Yeah, because some of those heavyweights, man, even though they're good, they need to stay away from some fast food and maybe eat some vegetables now and then.
Yeah, lay off the Krispy Kreme.
Absolutely, man. In some countries, some parts of this country don't know what a Krispy Kreme is, so we just sort of got stuck with donuts. We received an email, what's a Krispy Kreme? We're like, all right, we'll stick with donuts.
Yeah, it's a donut.
Now, Coach, looking at the mat work and the mat notes that you have coming into play, your background and what you've done in the past, you obviously got an incredible program looking ahead. We've already talked about that. You've talked about that. But what is kind of going to be your handprint on this team? You're obviously going to have to make sure and stay the course. You've got some guys that they're going to go deep into the NCAA at the end of the season. But, what are things you think you're going to help them along the way?
I think just consistency and accountability. I mean, you get to the NCAA tournament, 99.9% of the guys technically are sound. Physically they're for the most part in shape. It's just mentally having guys ready. And I think, every kid's different. So I think it's learning how to, push buttons on each kid that are different and, not having too big of an ego to not every kid's going to wrestle exactly like me. So how do we unleash, each kid as an individual, get him ready to compete the best that his body will allow him to compete. And I think when you do that, you start seeing some really good things happening. And a lot of programs are doing that across the country. Obviously, Brian Smith's done it in Missouri, Tom Borelli at Central Michigan, and so forth and so on. But we want to be consistent. We're not writing checks that we can't cash. We're not promising things that we can't deliver. I mean, we're just getting in there, blue collar, hard work, and getting the kids to do the right things from the time they wake up till the time they go to bed.
Now, Coach, as you step...
And hopefully they don't get back out of the bed and go do what they want to do.
Well, I find it harder that wrestlers tend to stay out of the press. You never see wrestlers, outside of little pranks that we all do that are pretty harmless but sometimes are pretty funny when you step away, but at the time they're not. Generally, wrestlers do not get caught into trouble on doing things as severe as football players, even basketball players, because there's really no time for it. You're either studying or you're working out 8 hours straight trying to get ready for the season. It's very unique. I don't think any other sport quite has the least amount of time to devote to pranks.
Yeah. And then when you add, you got to keep your weight down. You got to watch what you eat. I mean, it's 24/7. So it's 24/7. So you're either keenly aware of it, or you're probably just going to settle for mediocrity.
Absolutely. And obviously from the success you've had there at the school, you definitely err on being a champ.
I try. I think, and you got every kid's got different goals, but I think our expectation for kids coming in, I think we'll measure our success athletically. Do you get your name?